Hello, welcome back to week 41 on Out on That Line. I'm Geoff with my co-host Alex. Alex, how you doing this week?
I'll say it here like I was saying before we started recording. Real missed opportunity here to not do a Sum 41 deep dive retrospective on episode 41.
Yes, and I think that's the Out on That Line difference is, there's a lot of opportunities. We're going to hit some of them, but, some are going to slip by. They're just going to slip right through our fingers, this being one of them. We can live in shame or we can move on and just try to be better.
Yeah, we're like nurses in a birthing ward. Like, some are going to get by us, but the ones that we catch, you can treasure and appreciate. So don't think about the missed opportunities. Think about all the good times in front of us. That's how I like to think about it.
Yeah, we are, was it the TC Williams football team right at the start of the integration and Remember the Titans, and it was just chaos. They weren't a great team, but then they learned to play like men. And we're working our way towards learning to play like men. And when we get there, folks, I hope you'll still be with us so you can experience that glory right along the two of us. It's been a long road to get here. We got a long road to go. And I promise at episode 141, well, maybe I won't make that promise because that's a long time from now.
Yeah.
But we will consider doing the Sum 41 retrospective that everybody wanted and should have gotten this episode.
They just start making like Pet Sounds level albums after this, like just mind-bending destroyer music. By the time we get there, we've just got like this whole wealth of amazing content to cover. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice. And, I heard they're listeners of the show, so I hope this is the kind of creative kick in the ass they were looking for to release that magnum opus.
Yeah, come on, Sum 41. Be best.
Yeah, Derek Whibley and company. I bet you didn't think I knew the lead singer's name.
I don't want to get us too far off topic here, but Dexter Holland, the lead singer for The Offspring?
Yes.
He has a PhD in molecular biology?
I'm not surprised. That guy sounds like a nerd. I love The Offspring.
Yeah, totally. But like, you could have knocked me over with a goddamn feather when I was like, I guess I should just fucking throw myself in the ocean because the lead singer of The Offspring has a PhD.
I mean, his name is Dexter.
I think his real name is like Aaron Berg or something like that.
Well,
Dexter Holland's a code name.
That totally ruins. But maybe Dexter is who he wants to be, and that's why he went and got the PhD.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dexter Holland has the PhD. Whatever his fucking real name is nothing. He's not even the lead singer of The Offspring.
He wanted life to imitate art, but then he got in too deep. Tie in with Sum 41. Oh my God.
Flawless. I'm going to say nothing else is perfect.
Oh my God. Oh, well, now that I'm all fired up, what do you say we talk about a band that plays loud and hard every night and doesn't care how many people walk through that door? And of course, I'm talking about Against Me. This week is a little Against Me retrospective. You were wanting Sum 41, but I think you just got something better. And what made you think of doing this one, Alex? Because you're getting full credit for this idea here.
Well, if I'll be totally candid with you, we realized we're a little pressed for time. We've got some like summer holiday activities coming up. And we realized we were like, well, we could try to listen to something really quick and dash off some half-assed review. We're like, what I really liked about it is that it was music and that it had lyrics. And that's what I appreciate in a song, when it can mesh elements like that. Could have done that, but instead we made the executive decision to go with something with which we were very familiar, because I think it'll be interesting for people to listen to us talk enthusiastically about something we've been listening to for a long fucking time.
Oh, yeah.
A long time.
Against Me, I want to say probably came into our lives around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we probably weren't too far off and both introduced to it by, I'm guessing, Rory.
Yep, correct.
Sometimes friend of the pod, Rory.
Albatross of the pod.
Oh, no. Oh, well, we know he won't listen to this anyway.
He doesn't listen.
No, but I'll see him. I'll see him soon. And if he has
You'll see him in hell, all right.
Yeah, if he has something to say, we can duke it out. We can dance. Well, so I really like the idea because obviously Against Me has been a huge part of my life. I mean, certainly one of my favorite bands. And, it's one that you and me and Tanner and Rory, we've all listened to Measy back in the day. We all listened to tons and tons of Against Me, all the way through too. One thing I noticed in, kind of tell the listeners what's going on here. We each picked 3 songs like usual, but it could be from any part of their catalog. And what's funny is there's only 2 of the songs that we picked came from the same album.
Yeah.
The rest of them we picked different albums, which I thought was pretty neat, because I think it shows how good Against Me has been for such a long time, that there's been kind of some spots here and there where maybe everybody wasn't a fan, but I feel like the consistency has always been there. They're always evolving, which I think in my my advanced age I appreciate a lot more than when I was younger. I've lost a little bit of my edge, I suppose. But I just thought it was very interesting that it came from very clearly different eras of Against Me. And I think the album that we both picked a song from, and I'm not going to spoil that one, you got to listen the rest of the way, folks. I know that one for you and me has been, kind of an important album. It's one that we listen to all the way through on vinyl all the time. That album I really do associate with you quite a bit, just because
that's my favorite Against Me album.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the best one. I mean, that's hard to say.
I don't know. I would agree with that. It's
Yeah.
like the most fully formed and like true to concept one, I would say.
Yeah,
Well,
fully formed. I like how you put that, because I think that's
Okay.
I think that's true. I think that's what sets it apart. And I guess now searching for a form of clarity. It's going to be hard to continue talking about it in some sort of code. So it follows Reinventing Axl Rose and Against Me as the Eternal Cowboy. And those were very, a lot of it was very fast paced punk on As the Eternal Cowboy, and then on Reinventing Axl Rose, a lot of that folk punk that they were initially very famous for. And then you get into Searching for a Form of Clarity, and it's just all of a sudden they're polished, but they still have that kind of kick-ass energy, that I feel like kind of dipped for a little while after this one. But it was just an excellent album all the way through, and kind of my number one recommendation if folks are looking to get into Against Me. That's the album that I'm going to tell them to listen to.
definitely, because like Reinventing Axl Rose, which is the first out. I mean, there were a bunch of like EPs, but if we're going to go strictly with albums, Reinventing Axl Rose being the first one, it is very punk. It is very rough around the edges. It is very aggressive. It's loud. It's a lot of yelling. It's a very urgent delivery. So it's fantastic punk, but for people who might need more of a need to wade in slowly and see how they like it, you're absolutely right. Searching for a Form of Clarity is the one I would tell them to listen to, because in my mind is, and with the caveat, I am not trying to dead name Laura Jane Grace. I'm just, for the purposes of the story, living at that time at her assigned birth of male
Yeah.
as Tom Gable. Tom Gable at that point was in this idea, searching for a former clarity. This whole album feels like Tom Gable going back to Florida and just simmering in that muggy, disgusting, scummy, just atmosphere that a lot of people associate with like Florida man. And just like simmering in those elements to deliver these like slower songs. Like, it's too hot to move punk fast, and it's contemplative, and it's thinking about where you've been, where you are, and where you are going, where you want to go, where you're afraid to go. That's why I say it's the most fully formed, because it's like a huge crossroads for the band. So that would absolutely be my recommendation for where to start.
Yeah. And it's very, very good. And it's followed by, and this is the kind of, I was telling you before the show, I had a bit of a mea culpa on this one. The album New Wave by Against Me, I think, was fairly maligned by us as a friend group, and I think kind of overall as a fan base of Against Me. It could be, as with any very devout fan base, it can get a little toxic sometimes. And I think you'll find that anywhere. You find that with Coheed and Cambria. You certainly find that with even Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band fans. It's just everybody. If you get a lot of people from all walks of life, you're bound to get some kind of bad apples in there. And I went along with kind of hating that album, and I've been listening to it the last couple of years now, kind of listening all the way through. The only song I really can't stand on it is Stop. But the rest
That
of it's
song
pretty good. It's just different.
It's different, and you're right. I kind of passively went along with the hatred for it because for a long time I didn't really listen to the whole thing. I remembered, I think, protest songs. I don't remember what the actual song, but protest songs in response to military aggression.
I think Americans
Whatever that's
Abroad,
actually
right?
called. Americans Abroad. You're totally right. I listened to that, and I was like, it's not like the Against Me I know, but it's fine. Thrash Unreal, I really enjoy quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Great song, great music video. But you're right. Stop is the biggest sack of bullshit. And you get mad at Laura Jane Grace. You're like, come on now. There was no need for this.
Yeah.
Why did you do this?
Yeah.
What tell me why.
But I mean, like seriously, otherwise, like I'm gonna pull it up on Spotify right now. So I can like look through these songs. So they start New Wave. Pretty good song. Up the Cuts.
Yeah.
Great song.
Yep, great song.
Thrash Unreal. White People for Peace. I mean, that first four is great, and then it stopped. But Born on the FM Waves of the Heart, the one that he did with, I forget which of the one that she did with Tegan or Sarah, of Tegan and Sarah fame, I think was the other person on that song with them.
Your guess is as good as mine. It might as well be Mary Kate and Ashley.
Yeah, they're like very indie.
No,
Yeah,
I know
they're-
Tegan
yeah.
and Sarah. I don't know. I can't pull
forget
out of my
which one
ass
it is.
whether it was
Yeah,
Tegan
I
or
forget which
Sarah.
one it is, yeah. And then Piss and Vinegar, good song. Americans Abroad, that you had already mentioned, good song. Animal, and The Ocean. The Ocean's a great song too. But it's like 90% pretty good songs. So I don't know why I ever really had it out for that album.
I see what you're saying, and like for the same reasons, like you listen to it more, and you're like, you know what, this isn't as bad as I remember, and you reserve the right to change your mind. But if I still have a criticism of it, it felt like a step backwards for the band, and it felt like a step backwards for Laura Jane Grace. Like maybe at that time it was all she could handle, because all the albums up to this point, which many people didn't notice at the time, but now it all makes perfect sense. These albums all leading up to it were deeply steeped in her gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
I mean, there's breadcrumbs all throughout most of these songs, or they can be interpreted as like her crying out as a result of her gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
And so like that's a huge thing in punk. That is huge. Like Against Me may not have ever been the biggest band, but they are very popular, especially with like punks of taste, if you will. And you have a highly visible trans singer. That's not nothing. And like the fact that she shared that story, like I read her book, and she spares no detail, and she is not afraid to look like a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that inside look, and it makes you appreciate the songwriting behind Against Me, because that's like such raw shit to share, and you can tell it felt dangerous for her at the time to be putting any of this down. So to take stock of everything that came before, solid, amazing, really daring. And then you look at this and it's like, this feels pretty commercial.
Yeah.
And maybe not like it's plumbing the depths that other songs have done, but you cannot say that the music is bad, except for on Stop.
Yes. And I think it is like, where Searching for a Former Clarity was more polished than As the Eternal Cowboy and Reinventing Axl Rose. This was even more polished than that. This was, like big label, big name studio, like high end producer, somebody that's like looking to make it the most palatable version of Against Me. And that part I'm not that excited about, but the songs are fun to listen to. I certainly, I'm not going to put it up there with my favorite Against Me albums or anything. I don't think it's even top 5, but
no,
but it's like, I just don't have the hate for it anymore. And there's several of the songs that I go back to and listen a lot, like Up the Cuts is a fucking banger song. I mean, that chorus, Are You Restless Like Me? Incredible stuff. But yeah, that's my kind of mea culpa. New Wave, I think, is just a pretty good album, and I never gave it credit.
All right.
Yeah.
And I would agree. It is just a pretty good album.
Yeah.
That's my little hipster hot take on it. I still fucking absolutely hate White Crosses.
Yes. There's like
That
two,
album
there's like
sucks.
two good songs on that album, I think. High Pressure Low is not bad, and I think there's one more, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that was insulting. Listening to that, you're like, okay, all right, I'm done with Against Me. We'll always have Paris. And then luckily, Transgender Dysphoria Blues comes along and blows everything out of the water.
Yeah, they've come around. A couple little blips there on the road, a couple little bumpy spots, but we got there. And a big reason why we're even doing this episode is because they have had such longevity as a band. You know, they've gone through some personnel changes. I think Andrew Seward is back with the band. I think the only one that's not back with the band now is James. Tanner's going to kill me for not remembering his last name here. Bowman. Right?
Okay.
Maybe.
To be totally frank with you, I read this book and like the timeline was very unclear to me, and I'm kind of a starfucker, so I was like, Laura Jane Grace is the important character here. I'm reading her book. I don't know what this guy's Doodle O'Reilly or whatever his name is. I have no idea.
Oh, it was Warren was the drummer, and then Andrew Seward and James Bowman that was the four with Laura Jane. That was the four that you and I, like for those first four albums, that was the core band. And then they moved on. Like I know Max Weinberg's son played with them for a little bit. He's played with everybody. He's played with like Slipknot. He's filled in on the E Street Band for his dad.
I think he's playing with Slipknot on a consistent basis. I think he is the drummer.
Oh, well, good for him. That's probably pays a lot.
All that Hot Topic money comes rolling in.
Yeah, probably very lucrative. Very, very lucrative. But that's the band as we knew it. And now it's different, but I think James Bowman is back in the fold. I think Warren, the drummer, is the only one that hasn't come back. He went to be like a restaurateur in Florida or something like that, but he's decided that life is the one for him. And that's all we'll say about that, but it would be better if he came back because he was kick-ass. So we picked 6 songs, and we're just going to go through them. We'll talk about the album that they came off of, and obviously a little bit about why each of us picked them. So we'll start with one of yours from Against Me as the Eternal Cowboy. You Look Like I Need a Drink.
So I picked my songs for a very specific reason. It was really hard to just pick 3 because I had some like outside favorites. I considered doing 3 all off of Clarity. Like really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I was, when I saw your picks, I was like, okay, now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do one song from each of the first 3 albums because I like tracking that progression of the sound and the subject matter and all of that. And I'm going out of order by talking about You Look Like I Need a Drink first, but it doesn't matter because it's all a very subtle evolution. But this is a song about, and again, I want to leave the caveat that in talking in the past, sometimes if it's okay, I would like to switch to Tom Gable for the purposes of, in that moment, she was Tom Gable and that was her identity. And it's relevant to like what's being talked about in the song, like living as a man at that point with like man-related things happening. So I'm not trying to be an asshole when I say Tom Gable. Yeah. I hope that's okay. I really don't know how to talk sensitively about this stuff. I would like to, but I hope we get a pass for doing our best.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like everybody that listens to the show knows how we feel about personal freedoms and being who you want to be, and not really having any sort of judgments on that sort of thing.
I just hope that if people find this podcast and we get a huge following in our own subreddit in like 6 months' time, that they don't come back to this and go like, you thought you were so sly and so tender and so understanding.
Well, I mean, for this one, because this is the only one that I think really that sort of angle is going to, well, maybe one more that sort of angle is going to apply to.
It's gonna come up a bunch because again, there were these references inserted into so many of these songs, and I didn't necessarily pick mine along those lines. But again, it's so prevalent that it just keeps coming up. So, especially with You Look Like I Need a Drink, this is about when Tom Gable was in the throes of alcoholism. And this is a song about cheating on your wife. He was married at the time with some groupie rando. One of those people that is like, well, I see, when are you coming back to town again? And it's someone that, Tom Gable is never going to remember. And this was him on the verge of throwing away every good thing that he had and being conflicted about that, because at the time, Tom Gable was on a path to self-destruction and was struggling with all of these thoughts and feelings and feeling deviant and feeling like, in Laura Jane Grace's own words, freakish and perverted, which we know not to be the case. But when you have a military dad and you have no basis for this, you feel like you're deviant and other. So it's living this double life where you are a popular punk star and you are also battling this intensely personal thing that you think will not go over well in the punk community. So it's just a total path to self-destruction. Terrible choices, throwing away all the good things that you have because you just keep running from your problems. And it's an extremely punk, angry, bitter song, which I love about it. But I just, again, love that it's, for instance, on Spotify, one of the most popular Against Me songs in the top 5 is Baby I'm an Anarchist. Hot take, I really don't like that song.
Yeah, it's
at
a weird
all.
one.
I think it's pretty cheesy, and like a lot of try-hard punk adopts that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
We were marching around and we were angry and sad and like you end up not saying anything at all, which is why I really like something as like dark and depressing as You Look Like I Need a Drink. So,
It is a very dark song. Very, very dark. And, it really kind of gave me, the first time I heard it, I was like, I think this was one of the first Against Me songs that I listened to. I think this was like one of the first probably 5 or so songs that I heard. And I was like, what is this? What is this music? It's so fast. And I'd listen to punk and I'd listen to like Sum 41 at that point. That's like pop punk. This had this kind of raw anger and power to it, and that was just so enticing and such a draw for me just listening to this. And then when I finally got home and could like read the lyrics to it, I was stunned because they sing, the lyrics are sung so quickly in this song.
Yeah.
It's a really, really quick song. There's a lot of density to the lyrics as well. Like it goes quick, but there's a lot of words in there. And just the way that the story is told, in the closest alley, in the first doorway, he pushed up against her and closed his eyes. He said, "This is probably the worst decision that I've ever made." She laughed and smiled. She said, "I'm sure you do this all the time. Right, 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 right." And it's just like the way that conversation plays out in the song with such force and such power behind it, because the vocal talents of Laura Jane, even at this point, were incredible. I think honestly she sounds the best that she ever has right now. It's just she has a really, really kind of pure, natural voice. And this was back when she was still shredding it, when she was still this was still like full punk, angry screaming Against Me. And this song is like the epitome of Against Me playing fast and loose and absolutely kicking the shit out of a song. This one rocks
big time, and it's like dirty and shameful, like this back alley fuck. Like it's super evocative. It's exactly like you said when you were reading the lyrics. Like it can paint no clearer picture because this happened. This fucking happened more than once. And like if you choose to look at it like the way that I kind of do, which is Laura Jane Grace has always been here. Tom Gable was the cover. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So Tom Gable was the character. Laura Jane Grace is the person. And it's just absolutely wild to put yourself in those shoes where it's like it's performative identity to the point that you're destroying your entire life. Like the pressure to be like that is absolutely fucking insane. And the fact that it is all contained in one song, which moves a mile a minute like a freight train from hell,
Yeah.
and just fucks. It is so. All their music gets you jacked up, but a song like this, where it's like you can barely understand what's being said, it's coming at you so fast.
Yeah.
It just rocks so hard.
And the thing is, they play it even faster live.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, it is a fucking barn burner of a song. It is so fast, and the crowd starts beating the shit out of each other when this one starts going. It is a wild experience.
Quick sidebar: how many times have you seen Against Me live?
3.
Me too.
Yeah.
Twice in Vermont, once in Boston.
Yeah, I saw them twice in Vermont, once down here.
Wow.
Yeah. They still kick so much ass. So much ass.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, Laura Jane's voice now is just unbelievable. It was always good. It was always one of the most powerful voices, I think, in rock and roll, but goddamn, she knows how to like sing now.
Oh, I loved what she was doing on Stay Alive.
Yeah.
That the album we did way back when.
Way back when. Yeah, it was very, very good. Very, very good. Well, the next one, Pretty Girls, The Mover, from Searching for Former Clarity.
So this was another one of my picks, right?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Okay. Yes, this was another one of my picks. So actually, it's good that these two went back to back, because if we're looking at You Look Like I Need a Drink as the middle chapter, then Pretty Girls is kind of the apex, if you want to call it that, of this story that you can track from the beginning. It's actually 2 stories. You can track the evolution of their sound as a band, the things they're writing about, etc., and these breadcrumbs that Laura Jane Grace has been leaving about her internal struggles. And this is kind of where it all comes to a head, because this is a song that is about the intimidation that you feel when you're trying to ask someone out. Mm-hmm. Very simple concept on its head. But it has, now that we know what we know about Laura Jane Grace, it has this whole new layer, because all the lyrics, which I know you have up in front of you, if you want to hit us with some of them after I shut up, all the lyrics can be read and were read at the time as like, okay, well, Tom Gable is nervous about meeting a woman and not feeling good enough. But knowing what we know now, those lyrics take on a completely different meaning. So why don't you hit us up with a couple of those?
Yes, the chorus, actually, of this one, I think, speaks to exactly what you were talking about, both in the last song and this one. But there are things that you must accept as said and done. There are truths you must learn to confront. You can pray all night and day. You'll always wake the same person in the same place.
I mean, might as well be a fucking bullseye.
Yeah.
And I again appreciate those kind of candid lyrics that Laura Jane Grace was saying exactly what she meant. We just had no idea how to read it at the time. So it's interesting how you can have 2 completely edifying and totally different experiences, listening to it the first time, listening to it in 2021. And once again, it's another song that just absolutely rocks. It is hell-bent for leather. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're hard-pressed to find some of these little more stripped-down Against Me songs in general. You don't have that problem here either. This thing takes off and doesn't stop moving. It's called The Mover for a reason. Yeah,
they had 3 songs on this album. Was it The Mover, The Shaker, and The Roller?
The Energizer.
The Energizer. Yeah, it's perfect description for those songs. I mean, because this song just, you start out the album, you have Miami, you have Mediocrity Gets You Pairs, you have like a few really good songs, but then you hit Pretty Girls and you realize that Against Me can still rock your fucking socks off. And they crush it on this song. And I always thought this song was about an STD.
Really?
Yeah, because
read me some more lyrics. Yeah.
I just want to be young. I want to live. oh God, I want to be healthy. I don't want this problem. Oh, you wouldn't think something like irresponsibility would complicate something like asking for some company. Like the
You know
narrator
what?
of the song has an STD, really likes this person, and doesn't know how to talk to them. And so maybe they should just be friends.
I mean, I totally see it now. I see where you got that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why. I think because something like irresponsibility, having the unprotected sex,
Right.
I've always been told that's irresponsible to do. And, it just kind of, that's what I thought about. And especially after a song like You Look Like I Need a Drink, that I think back in those days Against Me was probably entertaining the advances of many a fan.
Oh, for sure.
So to speak, So I was thinking maybe pick something up along the road, and then some friends of the road come along, and you don't necessarily want to infect those friends of the road, even though they may already have something. That's how you got it in the first place, I suppose. But, I was just thinking maybe it's about that.
I mean, again, when you put it to me that way with the lyrics, like I can absolutely see that. That's not necessarily out of left field.
Yeah, and I've listened to the song 5 million times at this point, so if
Yeah.
I was going to come up with another theory, I probably already would have.
Yeah.
That's the one that stuck for me.
Well, and I love that no matter which way you slice it, it's ultimately about talking yourself out of it. You get in your own head and decide like, well, I don't want to be alone. I like this person, but I'm too fucking nervous. Fear has won out. All the fearful possibilities have made it so that there's no fucking way I can do this.
Yep.
So we should just be friends.
Yep. Yeah. It's very there's a lot of psychology going on this album, and we didn't even talk about the title track of this album. You want to talk about spelling it out in big red letters for everybody.
Yeah.
And nobody getting the hint. Searching for a Form of Clarity on this album is exactly that.
My original choices were going to be Pretty Girls, Searching for a Form of Clarity, and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I really like Miami. I just like the picture that it paints. And also as a weird sidebar, when I was in grad school, I did a TV series pitch in the drama class that was about a bunch of guys that moved to Miami to open a club. Their one friend dicked them over, made it huge, became like a big club owner.
Yeah.
And they've been relegated to pest control, catching alligators and snakes and shit. And they get hooked up with a mafia guy who's also in the club business, whose biggest rival turns out to be the guy that dicked them over.
Yeah.
So wacky hijinks ensue. And I was like, well, what do I want the theme song to be? And I was like, oh, Miami, 100%. If that's where it's taking place, this song, I see the whole credit sequence for this prestigious Emmy Award-winning drama that I was going to write. And it was set to this song because all your guts expanding, your hairline's receding, the sores are opening, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The cancer is spreading. Major fucking damage. Just like the whole song is like a fat Florida guy who got too fucked up on hot dogs and beer at the cookout and he's flatlining. It's very evocative.
That's a hell of a song. And
it is.
To be honest with you, I think that's honestly my least favorite song on the album. I don't know why.
And that's the strength of Searching for the Form of Clarity.
Because I still rock that song quite a bit.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a great opener too.
It is. But I honestly am surprised. I was surprised when I didn't see when I saw that you didn't pick Searching for a Form of Clarity.
I thought about it. I really thought about it. And then that's when I went for my poo-poo platter of the first 3 albums.
I guess it didn't matter. It snuck in there anyway.
Yeah, it got a little shine.
Look at that. The universe tends to unfold as it should. Learn that from Harold and Kumar.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a nice sentiment.
Did I also tell you the story behind Mediocrity Gets You Pairs?
No.
Okay, I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show before, but at one point Against Me was playing a show, and there was some record executive or producer or something who sent Laura Jane Grace this incredibly ornate gift basket full of artisanal cheeses and summer sausage and craft honey and what have you. And the rest of the guys had to share a single fruit basket that had like rotting pears in it. And so I can't remember who it was, but one of the other guys picked up the basket and was like, huh, I guess mediocrity gets you pears. And all of a sudden they have a song.
Oh, that's great. I mean, not great for the
You-
other guys in the band, but
No.
it's a great story. Really great story.
You got to read that book. It's worth it. It's short. It's a quick read. You'll cruise through it.
I should read that. I should do more reading. Pretty much don't read anything these days. Used to read all the time.
Phone does all the work.
It
Yeah.
does. It really does. It does too much work, to be honest with you. Just don't read anything. I read about furniture and I read Twitter. That's it.
If it turns out that phones can wipe your ass and you can have sex with them, it's over. Like, I'll never leave my house. Yeah. I didn't include eating in this because it's no way to live, but the 7 days up until I die of starvation, I'm going to be having the time of my
Well,
life.
your phone already can order delivery. You'd be fine.
Oh, my God. That's true.
You'd be fine.
Grubhub and Pornhub, baby.
Yeah, delivery food. Food is probably the least of your worries when it comes to why you wouldn't be able to stay home all the time.
I just turned into like one of the blob people from Wall-E.
Yeah, but if you never go out anywhere, who cares?
It sounds like a nice life. Better than the one I've got, if I'm being honest.
Honestly, it doesn't sound too bad.
I've talked myself into it, Geoff. I'm going to go wipe my ass with my phone and start a movement.
Well, we'll do a documentary show on TLC someday for you.
Perfect. I deserve it.
Well, what do you say we stick with this album? And we skip down to one of my picks, and then we'll do a 180 back to one of your other ones. But we'll stick while we're on this subject matter. We'll talk about the song Problems.
Okay.
Because this is my favorite Against Me song. This one is absolutely incredible. Every time that last like quarter of the song kicks off and they just start absolutely crushing it. I mean, they are just rolling. That is some of the purest rock and roll music that I've ever heard in my life. And this song is so fucking good. I listen to it all the time, probably at least once a week since the first time I heard it. This one blows all the other ones out of the water for me.
Wow. I never fucking knew that. I mean, great choice. It's a great song. I never had any concept that it was your favorite and that you listened to it that much.
Oh, yeah. This one is. I mean, this was the first one I thought of when you were like, oh, let's do an Against Me episode. I was like, oh, fuck yeah. I know exactly which one I want to talk about. The other two were the problem. This one was always making the list.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you, you're the expert on the song. I am very tempted to assign my customary like suicidal ideation interpretation to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got a first verse that's talking about taking inventory, like it's a backup plan for a huge like financial disaster that comes in the wake of trying to follow your dreams and failing, something like that. Okay. And then the second verse makes it seem like Laura Jane Grace is kind of taking a like dissociative long view of this, like looking at what she's got. So if the first verse is talking about a fallback, Laura Jane Grace in this verse is looking at, you know, all the things that she has and stands to lose, and it just doesn't really sound real or fulfilling. So like, how do you deal? But then there's this idea of like no more problems, and it's like, so is that an indication of like I won't have more problems if I don't exist? Am I like totally off base in that? I'm not saying is that right, but do you see where I'm coming from?
I do see where you're coming from. And I think one of the reasons I love this song is because I have my own interpretation of what this one's about. But I think the beauty of her songwriting is that it doesn't take much to apply it to yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think with a lot of the songs, like with Pretty Girls, we had two totally different interpretations of that, both completely valid. You know, and I think that is part of probably the kind of duality that Laura Jane was feeling at this point in time, and kind of ticking closer to 0 hour when that decision finally gets officially made, you know? And I think that is what we're talking about here is, you know, I think she had at this point come to terms with what was going on. Now it was just a matter of, you know, where do I go from here? It's like, where, what do I do? But I have to at least face forward and take this thing head on, I think is what this song tells to me. Because it's like all the issues had been worked out. She finally had kind of decided, this is who I am, on the inside. I need to be that person on the outside. And I think that's that realization. And obviously there's a whole mess of other problems created at that point, because now you've told yourself, like, there's no avoiding that situation anymore. There's no talking yourself out of that. Now it's just a matter of how do you get from here to being the fully realized version of the way you see yourself. And I think the lines, this song has two of them. I mean, I am becoming the choices we're making is an unbelievable line, where it's like, that's when things are kind of falling apart because everybody is not worried about enough about what they're doing. And then here in the worst, I will become the best of them all. No more problems with anything. And that is that kind of defiant spirit. It's like all of a sudden, bam, here we go. And then when we get to the end of the album with Searching for a Form of Clarity, it's kind of like how I missed this with as much as I listened to this album, like how I missed that this was a possibility. I'm just going to chalk that up to being inexperienced with the world and a lot younger than I am now. But it could not have been more obvious that there was some real severe gender dysphoria going on for her at this point in time. And this song, I think, she's very good at like framing it in terms of like being in a band and like, with Reinventing Axl Rose, what we're going to talk about a little later. It's just like when she kind of goes into that stuff, she obviously has a very specific way that she views things, like a specific perspective, and how she relates things, like these kind of abstract feelings and thoughts, how she relates them and kind of makes them a real tangible thing by applying them to some real situation, I think is a really, really kind of deft thing to do in songwriting. And I think this album is absolutely chock full of it. I think this is the best songwriting that she's ever accomplished. And that's not saying she hasn't accomplished some great songwriting on other albums and other projects, but it's like this one and this song in particular, it will absolutely never get old for me because it's just like has such a resonance lyrically. And then that outro, that ending part where they just show you, they're like, we still know how to fucking rock. Like, I don't care what anybody says. We still know how to fucking kick that door down.
I mean, that's a hell of a fucking pitch. And to be quite frank, I think I enjoy your interpretation of the song even more than mine. I didn't enjoy mine. Mine was sad. But, I mean, that's a hell of a pitch for this song. And I think you're right. A lot of the themes on the album kind of pivot around this because you're right. It's very demonstrative of the depth and breadth of Laura Jane Grace's songwriting. So good pick.
Yeah. It's a
good favorite.
It's a fucking hell of a song.
Yeah,
absolutely. This is the one that if somebody is asking what song to get into against me, I guess maybe Thrash Unreal would kind of have to be that pick, but this would be a close second for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give it to this. I like Thrash Unreal, but I mean, this is the good shit. This is the pure extract.
Yeah, this is the stuff that keeps me coming back. Like whatever else Against Me decides to do in their career, at least I'll always have this.
Absolutely.
This song just rocks. So we'll go back. We'll rewind the clock. Go back to their first. I think this was their first like major release, Reinventing Axl Rose, and the title track of the same name.
Yeah, so this was my other pick. So now if we want to take like a long view of the progression, you start here, and this is a song that's just about affirming that if you do your own fucking thing, you're going to have some level of success, or at least you're going to be able to hold your head high, right? Dreams are a tough thing to nurture, so you can't get discouraged, and you have to, as Casey Musgraves would say, follow your arrow. If you want it, you have to go get it, and you have to do it your own way. Because looking at the landscape of the music business, I think Laura Jane Grace and Against Me were like, you know, at best we become some prepackaged, flavor of the week type act that fades into obscurity, and at worst we never get to do this at all. We just, no one ever knows our name, and we just totally implode. But you have to try. It's like Michael McDonald. I gotta try. I'll drop all my favorites in here. But it's introducing a new idea in punk, which I think is really cool, which is that it's something very prevalent now, which is kindness is punk.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to posture and talk shit and act like you're super tough and badass, because emotional honesty is honored here. So playing like you're a badass doesn't impress anybody. And that's a really cool idea to seed into the punk scene, because a lot of Laura Jane Grace's frustrations were with like fair weather fans and fans that were like, oh, punk is a very pure genre. If you don't do certain things, you're not punk. But these are like trust fund kids who are cutting their own hair and acting like they know. I mean, there are real punks out there, but then there are a lot of fucking posers. Which ones do you think bitch about the integrity of punk the most and felt like they were owed something by their favorite acts? So I like the idea that in this song, Against Me, is like, we're more than a product, and we're not something that is to be marketed to you. You have to find us, because we're allowed to be ourselves. No one's telling you to like us. And I love it. And this is a song that is urgent and aggressive with that message. It just barrels forward like a bat out of hell. It's like, if you really want to start at the tippy with Against Me, the album Reinventing Axl Rose and this song are, as much as like Problems is pure essence of Against Me, this is like as close as you can get to that without your eyes getting wet.
Yeah. This is a hell of a song. I mean, this album is the first 3 albums are absolutely impeccable rock and roll music. I mean, they're as good as it gets. There's a reason that Against Me is as well respected as they are, both inside punk music and outside. And this song is very simple. It's just like, but the message behind it, I think, it's not hard to follow this storyline of like, they love basement shows and bands that play just for the love of the music. That's this purity of soul and purity of intention and purity of music. It's just this, like, all we want is to play music for a bunch of people that want to hear our music. And they're like, we're not going to sell out for that. A lot of folks later on, certainly accused them of doing so, but I think it was from that group of people, the posers are the real ones, and you can guess which one that was. But it's like this song, I think, and the title of it, Reinventing Axl Rose, and you think about who Axl Rose was, who was a badass singer of a badass rock and roll band, and I think Laura Jane has this weird thing on Twitter where she always just like will respond to people with pictures of Axl Rose, but like old Axl Rose. So I don't know if she's a fan of Guns N' Roses or if she's not, but it's like, maybe because she's not a fan, she's like, well, if that's your idea of what music is supposed to be, like, we're going to change that. We're going to reinvent that. And maybe that's the idea, is like, they're not talking about playing big stadium shows here. They're like, we want to play basement, do it yourself punk shows, where the beer is not the life of the party. We want a band that plays loud and hard every night, doesn't care how many people come through the door. It's just a really, really excellent punk song. They had debuted before this, but this was, I think, their real like big kind of coming out party as a real respected, legitimate punk band in this scene.
Yep. And I, in the interest of time, I won't say much more, except there's an interesting nugget dropped at the end of this where it's not even it's a subtle hint to the gender dysphoria, but I like this idea of beyond a gender, race, and class, we could find what really holds us back.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that is going to mean something different to everybody. What do you think is holding you back beyond those parameters? And even the sheer mention of gender was a breadcrumb of like, where does Laura Jane Grace's head go with this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is really holding her back?
Yeah.
And it's so like, again, it was seeding this awareness of like, I feel like I'm not normal, which it is it's an absolutely normal, like Laura Jane Grace is a normal person,
Yeah.
other than the level of fame she's achieved. But she didn't feel normal at the time because, again, no one was normalizing these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the start of the trail, you know?
Yeah. This was, and I mean, it kind of, I guess if you really want to go through this whole album too, I'm sure there's other things you can find. I haven't analyzed this album quite as much as I have as The Eternal Cowboy and Searching for Former Clarity. Those two are definitely, of the three, Reinventing Axl Rose I think comes in at number 3, but I mean Searching for Former Clarity and As the Eternal Cowboy are both just absolute banger albums. Tough to beat no matter what. So we got 2 more. We've got Tonight We're Going to Give It 35%. And this was from the Disco Before the Breakdown EP. And I almost picked the Disco Before the Breakdown. I was like,
me too.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard. It was so hard to pick 3 songs. And I think when I texted you, I was like, okay, these are the 3 I want. But if you were dying to pick any of these 3, tell me, because I'll just find a replacement. Like, it would not have been difficult to do. But Tonight We're Going to Give It 35%. I think the reason I picked that one is because we used to play that all the time in the basement. That was one of those songs that really kind of started out with me becoming a musician. That was playing music in my basement with you and Tanner and Rory. And it just was a really, really wonderful time to be alive. And this song was a really, really huge part of that. And this one is probably not going to be for everybody. I think this is like a very, very deep cut Against Me song. I think unless you're like a real Against Me fan, you're not going to know what this song is because it's very niche. It's a very sparse song. It's a very sad song. And I think it doesn't have like the typical Against Me rocking, it's just like a very introspective song. And it really, really has always kind of like spoken to me, because of the experience I had with my friends playing it. And then also just throughout the years, like kind of as you age and you start to understand these concepts and things like that. And like the loneliness that I think really kind of pervades this whole song, just that feeling of just not having anybody around and, wondering who you are and what's your place in other people's lives. Like, do you really matter that much? It was just a very, very heavy song for 4 boneheads to mess around playing in their basement,
Yeah, it was a staple of the Summer of Hate, which was 2007, wasn't it?
I think it had to be sometime. Was it 2007? I think it was 2007. I think you're right.
It's the Summer of Hate, and now I'm irate.
The talent.
But
the talent.
It was obvious from the word go. But you're right. That was a really fun time, and that was really important and formative for us as a friend group, for us as musicians, individually and together. And I remember those times fondly as well, and this song especially. And it's, like you said, it's very depressing. It's about Anti-Flag trying to sign Against Me. And so it's like you're getting everything you want. Mm-hmm. We drank bottled water together and talked business. You're getting everything you want. Things are going well with your stated ambition, but you can't enjoy it because you're tortured by the fact that it might all slip away. Mm-hmm. Going out on the balcony for Tom Gable to talk to his then wife, and getting into a fight over the phone when all you wanted to do was say goodnight.
Yeah.
Just these really, like, again, like you say, pervasive loneliness, these little vignettes where it's like, I can't enjoy any of this. And that anger boils over for me up to the end of the song where it's those drum hits, dun 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 dun. Mm-hmm. Now and it's smash. Got me on my knees in the bathroom praying to a God I don't even believe in. Mm-hmm. And again, this has a dual text because you have lines like, can you live with what you know about yourself when you're all alone behind closed doors?
Yeah.
So once again, it's right there. So it's this intersection of you're so desperate not to lose everything that you've got, but you can also feel it imperiling the other aspects of your life. Like your marriage is suffering, your sobriety is suffering. So what the fuck do you do?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, just the way that the lyrics are written, I think this one really shows, because Laura Jane can write an aggressive song. She can write a really angry song. I think where she separates herself from, her compatriots in punk music is her ability to write the truly introspective stuff and the truly, really deeply honest stuff. And I think that this song is a perfect example of it. My heart is anywhere but here. And how tired I was from the past couple of weeks, from the past couple of years, will it hit me all at once? And it's just that feeling that everybody's had, I think, when you finally get a chance to slow down and things get an opportunity to catch up to you. Like, are those things going to be good? Or are they going to bring you into a depressive state that you were trying to escape from? And finally you had a moment to breathe and they caught right up to you. And it's just this idea of, I think they were always worried about being seen as inauthentic and sellouts, especially in that scene. I mean, it's like I don't know any other genres of music where it's so frowned upon to quote unquote sell out, than punk music. I think it's the most looked down upon thing, where if you change how your music sounds, you are betraying your fan base, is what a lot of bands get told. And so a lot of bands don't. And you end up with bands like the Bouncing Souls, where every single album sounds exactly the same. And you end up with bands like The Offspring, where the music's good, but you're not going to get a huge difference from album to album. With Against Me, the evolution was constant and unrelenting. And I think you go from reinventing Axl Rose to something somewhat similar with the Disco Before the Breakdown EP, but they brought in horns. They had basically like a ska song that they did with Disco Before the Breakdown. And then they had Tonight We're Going to Give It 35%. Both songs very depressing. I think both were sort of these things that were kind of bursting out of Laura Jane at that point. She's like, I have some things to say. It's not going to be like the other stuff we've done so far, but I have to say it. And then you go into You Look Like I Need a Drink and As the Eternal Cowboy, songs like that from that album. And all of a sudden there's more anger and more desperation, and then you get into Searching for a Form of Clarity, where I think a form of clarity was found. I don't think it was the form of clarity that she was referencing. I don't think it was like the childhood happiness, the kind of childlike innocence that I think she was really referencing in that album. I think it was a new form of clarity, one that brought its own set of other issues. But, I think it's Tonight We're Going to Give It 35%. And songs like this are really what kind of show that progression, that if you pay attention and look at songs and lyrics from album 1 to the EP to album 2 to album 3, you start to get a picture, it kind of starts getting built in your mind of the sorts of struggles that Laura Jane was dealing with at this time. And aside from it being just an important song to us as a friend group, like, it's a very important song to me as an Against Me fan, because I know what kind of place this came from, and I feel like it lets me into that universe a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better, so I'm gonna kind of dovetail with our last pick, which was one of yours, Black Me Out from Transgender Dysphoria Blues, which was the first album after Laura Jane Grace's coming out. And it's like you said, you can track a progression. You can track the metamorphosis of anger and angst and bitterness and all these things. So coming off of the first album with Laura Jane Grace finally fronting the band, right? Like finally allowed to be Laura Jane Grace and command Against Me, the tone of the songwriting changes even more to where many of the previous songs were Laura Jane Grace casting herself as perverted and freakish and deviant, like a total other. And then this song comes along and puts that onus on other people. Anyone that, like she talks about in the book, how after coming out, other members of the band were like, fuck, we made so many gay jokes, and we
Yeah.
used, like, the 6-letter F-bomb, and, like, fuck, we said so much fucked up stuff in front of you, and, like, not realizing what was going on. And Laura Jane Grace was like, you didn't know? I guess now you realize it wasn't a good fucking thing to say ever, regardless of who's in the room. But, it's an interesting thing. There were a lot of personal and professional reckonings for Laura Jane Grace at this point. Some positive, some negative. People who responded favorably, some people who didn't. There were people who were pissed when Laura Jane Grace burned her fucking birth certificate that said Tom Gable and was like, fuck it, I'm done. There were people that were pissed when she was like, I won't play in North Carolina because of your fucking bathroom laws. Like, she became increasingly political and increasingly visible, and that pissed as many people off as Against Me selling out. And Black Me Out feels like the apex of that. Like, fickle fans who think I fucking owe them something. I want to cut all those brass rings off your fat fucking fingers. You want to make me jump through hoops? I'll kick you in the goddamn head. How about that? I just love the anger and the passion in this song and the new way that she frames everything.
Yeah. I felt like we needed to have something from Transgender Dysphoria Blues album, just because, whether you count that among your best Against Me albums or not, it's absolutely a top 5 for me. I mean, it's tough to, I think for me, it's probably Searching for a Former Clarity, As the Eternal Cowboy. This one, it's between Reinventing Axl Rose and Transgender Dysphoria Blues, honestly, for the number 3 spot. I think those are fairly tied for me. But I felt like this song, because this was the first one I heard from that album, so it was just like the first thing I'd ever heard from Laura Jane Grace. And I was just curious. I was like, okay, is it going to sound any different? I'm sure I had every kind of thought that, a person not experienced with that sort of thing happening in their world, all those kind of thoughts that really don't make any difference at all, were the things I was thinking of. And then I heard this song and I was like, oh no, it's going to be just fine. If anything, she sounded even more powerful than she ever had before. That was what really struck me about Black Me Out. It was not only was Against Me back, they were back in a big fucking way. And Black Me Out, I think, is one of the best, like, fuck you rock songs in existence. The way at the end, the outro, when she's singing all the young graves filled, don't the best all burn out so bright and so fast. And she hits that key change and you're like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy that she can sing like that. And then she goes even higher when she says full body high, I'm never coming down, Black Me Out. I mean, just absolutely. That's where, when I was mentioning that her voice has all of a sudden, and maybe it always was, and she just never chose to sing this way. Her voice is very, very pure and powerful. Like, has some pipes, has always had pipes, but there was always that kind of gravel in her voice on most of the songs. Like, I don't remember a lot of them where she's saying this clearly, this purely, like clear as a bell on some of this stuff, and especially on that outro. And I think it's one of the best performances after such a pivotal event in someone's life. I don't know if I want to call it a comeback album. I don't think that's the right term, because I don't think they really took an inordinate amount of time off or anything like that. But it just, to me, was like a statement that they're like, we're fucking back in a big way. And this song just kicks so much ass.
Yeah, it kicks ass, and like it's the rejuvenating power of being fucking allowed to be yourself at long last. Like, that's where all the strength came from in this album, was like, we are back and we are as authentic as that. You want to talk about authenticity in punk? This is fucking it. How can I be an authentic product to you if I'm not being my authentic self? So here you fucking go. We're going to give you all you can handle. And it's Transgender Dysphoria Blues. I think I would put it number 3.
Yeah.
It slightly edges out Axl for me because I have the same top 2 as you. I think it slightly edges out Axl. Axl's an important one, but I think this is equally as important.
Yeah.
It's a whole new phase, and in many ways, like it's a new beginning for Against Me. And it's a solid fucking album top to top, and this song is like the crown jewel.
Yeah, this one, I think it's the last song on the album, and it's just what a way to close it out.
Yeah. Oh fuck yeah.
Yeah, I mean they've got Transgender Dysphoria Blues, True Trans Soul Rebel on there, Unconditional Love, Drinking with the Jocks. I mean, there are so many fucking good songs on that album. It is a really, really solid album top to bottom. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's like it may even be like closer to number 2 than I'm thinking it is. I think Searching for Former Clarity and As the Eternal Cowboy have been like locked in as my top 2 for so long that it's like a set in stone thing for me. But I think Transgender Dysphoria Blues like comes a little closer than I might be giving it credit for.
I mean, I buy it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, my 5th is a little bit of a cheat. I think I might go with that Against Me EP where you can hear like the original demo version of Jordan's First Choice.
Oh yeah.
When Laura Jane Grace at the time, again living as a man, little Tom Gable was just like a little child who had this incredibly high voice.
Yep.
Tell me how could you compromise yourself like that? I was like, oh my God. And you just hear like the cassette hissing the whole time. I really fucking love that EP.
Yeah. Did you ever listen to their like very first EP? It was like Vivata Vis or something like that.
That might be what I'm talking about. Maybe I just fucked up the name.
Let's see.
It's got the little golden horsey man on the front.
Oh, I don't know if it's even on Spotify. Yes, I think it's the...
Oh, no, the one I'm looking at is the acoustic EP. Duh.
Trying to... I think it was Vivata Vis or something like that. But it's like had some like deep cuts. The Vita Vis...
Crime is also a great EP from them.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, there's... Oh, Shit Stroll was the one that... That was the one that we would always listen to from that album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great album. It is rough. It is rough. But I don't know. It goes to that evolution thing. If you listen to it all the way through, they sound like a completely different band now, but they still have that like backbone. They still have that same soul and heart to the music. It's just, I don't know. They're a band that I think for a little bit I kind of was like bashing them because they had ripped off two albums in a row that were not that great in my opinion. But the recovery from that, if I'm any sort of qualified judge of even calling it a recovery, as if to have the authority to imply that those other albums weren't good. I just didn't like them that much, and I have a music podcast, so I'm going to talk about it. You people are going to hear about it, but it's just like the consistency, the quality of the work has always been there. Whether you were really a big fan of any certain songs or a certain album or not, the effort was never in question with this band.
No, not at all. And I agree with you. There was a while where I walked away from Against Me. I was like, I'll always listen to the old shit, but I'm not following them into the future.
Yeah.
This shit sucks. Like you said, they laid 2 stinkers in a row. And I was like, fuck this, man. And I wouldn't necessarily ever accuse them of selling out because I was never punk and never claimed to be, but I was like, they just fucked up their sound. Mike Love said, don't fuck with the formula. And look what you did. Look what you done did.
Fucked with the formula.
But they came back around and like rediscovered who they were. And I will always have a special place in my heart for Against Me. It's been so big for the friend group. And it's like music that I can listen to that makes me really nostalgic for the old days with you guys. And just makes me glad that we're all still friends.
Yes. Yeah. It really, this was a fun episode. I'm really glad he suggested we do that one. I like these retrospective things. I feel like we get a lot more in the weeds with the things that we really care about.
Yeah. Nice little tangents and whatnot.
Yeah. It's a fun time in a good way. let's see. I think that's going to do it. I think we're like a little bit past where we usually are time-wise. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got to wrap this up. Is there something you need to plug, Alex?
No, I did want to plug our plans because we are on vacation. So I think we're going to make like the government and observe the 4th on the 5th. No new episode that week.
But that gives everybody a little bit more time to let us know what they want to hear at outonthatline@gmail.com. You'll find us on Instagram @outonthatline, on Twitter @outonthatline1. Send us a DM. You could send us a little message on Facebook. You'll find us Out on That Line podcast on there. We have a YouTube, and there's going to be another singles video up there by the time you hear this on Monday. So make sure you go check that out, and you'll find it by searching hashtag Out on That Line at YouTube. And you'll find all of our other podcast episodes on there as well, including this one. So if that's your preferred medium to listen to any sort of audio or some nice videos, some nice few-minute videos, don't take much time out of your day, that's where you'll find it all. And you know who else I wanted to plug? Frank Zappa, because I think somebody forgot about him this week.
Holy shit, I did. I got so wrapped up in the magic of Against Me and young adulthood that I didn't even mention old Uncle Frank. Good catch, Jeff.
Totally forgot about the mustache. I wasn't going to let you fall like that, though.
Because here's the thing. There have definitely been past episodes. I think the Olivia Rodrigo one, I forgot to mention him.
Oh, well, you can always edit it and re-upload it.
I just have me screaming Frank Zappa like Beetlejuice. Frank Zappa, Frank Zappa, Frank Zappa. Yeah, so thank you for catching me when I fall.
Yes, that's what I'm here for. You know, where you see two sets of footsteps, that's where I was walking beside you. Where you see one set of footsteps, that's where I carried you.
Well, I appreciate that, 'cause I hope you know I weigh a lot.
Well, I used to make you carry me around sometimes. I always thought it was the funniest thing. Like, let me jump into Alex's arms as if I'm a small human. Well, maybe we'll run that. Fuck. Maybe we'll run that back at camp. You've been lifting weights.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna be chucking all you guys around.
Well, if that's gonna do it for you, that's gonna do it for me. So, folks, it'll be a little bit, but until next time.